welcome to the Blood and Pigment podcast. My name is Garrett Swader, and I am here with Dan.
Sup?
And Joseph.
Hello there.
On this episode, we're going to go through our normal everyday stuff, such as Hobby Desk, Glory and Shame reporting, peek behind the curtain if we have anything to peek behind the curtain about, and we have some Adepticon news that we might go over. And then the main topic today is going to be Amphibious Games and how you can make those work a lot better for your gaming group that you play with. We've also got some New Year's goals that we're going to go through. Some of those are more quantifiable than others, so we'll see how that goes throughout the year, and then we'll round it out with announcements.
They need to be very quantifiable so everyone can make fun of us like they always did on Tales of the Sale. That was my favorite part, making fun of people if they didn't do their things.
That was a good. I didn't get to participate that short stint that I was on Tales of the Sale, so I did not get to the ridicule. But now I might be able to get some of that ridicule.
Got to get some.
So Joseph, I think you have your finger on some Adepticon coverage for us. We are recording on the day that the registration has went live, so we have some live numbers.
Yeah, it went live 4 hours ago, and we have about 195 people at last count registered for different events so far for Blood and Plunder. The Learn to Play events are quite full, and we have a ton of them. Jason did double what I thought would be just right, and they're filling up, so smart on him. Ridicule me. Go ahead.
Oh,
thank you. But there's still some spots there, especially that we have like every hour during the morning, the first half of the day, and I think like the 10 or 11 hours still have quite a few spots. The historical games, we got the Deerfield Raid, New England raid should be pretty fun, and the Ming's attack on Santiago de Cuba, and those are. Some of them are all the way full, and some of them have a couple spots left. So jump on those if you want in right away. Make sure you get a spot. Tournaments are about half full right now. About 20 people or 18, 20 people involved in both of those. The Land and the Sea tournament for Blood and Plunder. And I don't think any of the volunteers have registered yet because we haven't got badges yet because the world is broken. So that'll be another 6, 8, 10 people in each one. So I suspect we'll see tournaments of about 30 people this year, but it might be more. But I was surprised. Tournaments cost $25. That's more than I thought, but apparently that's the standard.
what did they cost last year?
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Okay, I was thinking they were like 30 last year, but I might be wrong on that.
So Dan, you had to pay $25 for a tournament to get blown up on the first turn with cannons?
Yeah, I paid $25 for an ass kicking.
I paid more before, but that's for ass.
Eric Goebel out there, you know who you are.
Speaking of him, his I think his Port Royal stuff is filling up fast.
Yeah, the little campaign. I was interested in that, but I'm going to be busy. But yeah, he had 12 slots, and they poof are gone. Oak and Iron, all the Learn to Play spots are filled up already too. I'm not sure about the tournament yet. But yeah, definitely filling up. It seems like a bunch of people register in the first like 30 minutes, and then it kind of slow burns after that. So we'll see how many more we get, but a respectable number so far.
Well, that's good.
I was going to check the Oak and Iron tournament, but never know if I use ampersand or not. There we go. Learn to Play. Capacity full. Tournament, 12 players left out of I don't know how many, so plenty of space.
Yeah.
I kind of want to play in that, actually. We'll see.
It was fun last year.
I love that game. Anyway, jump in on Adepticon. I'll be putting up some pages for the event so you can kind of see pictures of what they're going to look like a little bit and some more details on how they're going to run. For the historical events, we'll have a registration for your forces for the tournaments, and that's really important to submit those just so you don't have to on the day of. If you make a little force building mistake or set up your force in a way that's not going to be entirely legal, it's much better to figure that out and modify a week or 2 or 3 or 2 months beforehand instead of the day of when everybody's trying to get straight, and you'll feel better about it. love it if you can just drop your Force Builder link in that registration, that pre-approval page on which I will put up. There's an event tab and Adepticon page. There'll be a spot you can put your list into, and we'll give you some feedback if it needs any feedback, and then you'll know you're set to go. Please do that.
I would encourage everyone that's playing in the tournament to kind of self-regulate on that too. Know the list building rules. It's always good courtesy to have your list printed out for your opponent to look at ahead of time. And then if your opponent finds something, don't be surprised if they make you play by the rules.
It's good to play by the rules.
Yeah, it's always good to play by the rules.
No cheating. That ain't fair.
I try to do that when I look at my opponent's list just to make sure that I've done it in the past. We've all done it. The oopsies. I've made a illegal list, and I would prefer somebody call me out on it rather than me like playing through a whole tournament and being like, "Oh, I was cheating the entire time."
Right. Getting first place, and then nope, your list is illegal. Yoink.
Yeah, that happened last year a little bit. Some things. My first tournament I ever went to, my first time meeting the Firelock guys was 2018 Gen Con, I think. I brought a Spanish list and an English list. And I sat down to play, and I was going to play my Spanish list, but the guy across me had a Spanish list too. So okay, I'll just play my English list, which apparently that was okay back then. But he had a Miliciano Swarm list, and I had that too. But somehow he had a 15-point commander plus the 30 guys. It was a 100-point list. I'm like, how are you doing that? Like, oh yeah, it's like this. And then halfway through the game, like, I'm counting the points over and over again. Like, yeah, you have 115 points because he somehow didn't count as commander. Then he felt horrible about it, and then he was very gracious about it. But I felt bad, and he felt bad, and so good to double check. Oh, that was a stupid tournament too. So I was losing that game, but then he forfeited because he cheated, which I didn't want him to, but he did. And then I missed the whole first game, so I got a bye. And then I went to the very top table without having won a game. But I'd lost, which is good. And then I was trying to outshoot the French Buccaneers, not good, with English freebooters. But then I gave some of the prize stuff to the guy who beat me as the Spanish, but his list was illegal, to try to make it right. But I felt crummy about it. So it's best to make sure you have stuff double checked so you don't be stupid like me.
Remember, if you're making a boat list for sea, you cannot take the Sharp-Eyed Lookout. It's got to be at least a 2+ ship, right?
Everybody loves the Sharp-Eyed Lookout.
That's the one that I keep running into. It's like, oh, I'll add that. Then, nope, can't do that. And the Force Builder does not let you know when you add it.
Yep, Force Builder is not going to enforce every rule in the book. Force Builder does a lot, but it can't do everything. And you got to know the rules a little bit.
Shall we move on to the hobby desk?
Yeah, sounds good. Joseph, do you have anything on your hobby desk worth chatting about?
I actually painted some miniatures. I finally got my Secret Santa miniatures out. I painted a set of French Caribbean militia. I was happy with them and sent them out the door with a couple extra goodies I got. It felt good, able to spend a good time on them and make them pretty nice. But I'm still working through this random set of 10 minis with some of those North American English militia models, which are kind of new. A Black Caesar model. Same stuff as last month, which is so stupid. But I've just been busy. Christmas is hard to get time. I painted some miniatures for my kids for Christmas, so that took up some of my painting time. But yeah, nothing much. But that's one of my goals later. Gonna paint more miniatures this year.
That's probably everyone's goal.
I know Dan's been painting up a storm.
Yeah.
Dan's been painting circles around us.
Yeah. How many minis you painted this last couple months, Dan?
I will know once I have everything painted and I can count it reliably.
Ran out of fingers and toes.
Yes, exactly.
So what have you been working on, Dan?
So I'm almost done with the Adepticon stuff. I just have 2 more units of the Jamaican privateers that are on my desk because we have the 2 different pirate commanders, the Jack Rackham and Vane. I've been making sure that their minis look a little different. So the ones that are under Vane's crew are going to look more villainous and like scumbaggy, and the one under Rackham's crew going to look a little more flamboyant and have some more color in there. So that's kind of the idea that I'm going with. Once those are done, then all of them are finished. And then in my backlog, I have a Barco Luengo that still needs to be painted that I got, and then was waiting for the errata to come out. And then I have some Valor stuff that I need to paint. I have a little small backlog for my original set that's been sitting in my stuff for about a year. And then my brother he tried to order some Morgan's Atlantic Germans off of Amazon. They sent him Russians. So he is giving me those. So I'm going to paint those up like the Russo-Japanese War. And still considering which list I'm going to bring to Adepticon, but that's what I'm going to be painting from there.
How about you, Garrett?
I've finally kind of kicked into gear for Adepticon stuff. So I've been working on the trees that I promised you, Joseph, for your Deerfield raid.
Thank you.
And then I'm also I got the idea from Jason, the way he did his sugar crops. And I was like, I've got those crops that people have complained to me in the past about being very hard to play with as far as terrain on the board. And so I'm kind of combining Jason's theory of putting it on little strips. And with mine, I like all of my area terrain to have a base on it to where, you can put your minis on the base and know exactly where that area terrain is on the board. But then you have the crops that you can move around and take some out if you need to, put the minis in there and all that. So I've got those on popsicle sticks now. I'm painting the bases for those. Everything's working out pretty well on that. I've got the corn done. I've actually got some cotton that I've putting on strips, and then I should have a bunch of sugarcane that I can put on strips. I'm actually out of popsicle sticks. I've got to go buy more popsicle sticks.
It's getting serious when you run out of popsicle sticks.
Yeah, I know. I've not used popsicle sticks for much of anything lately, and I just realized that I don't have that many of them when I started doing this. So I was only able to get my corn and like half of my cotton done, and then I was like, oh, well, got to get some more.
Just message Dexter, he buys by the dump truck load.
I'm sure, yeah.
Special
Whatever
supplier.
hobby store he has to stock extra for him.
First name basis for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, other than that, I may or may not have. We were just talking about display boards for Adepticon. I may or may not have a new fort that's a little more accurate to 1702 Castillo de San Marcos. That's what I want to try to do. I've moved my other fort out of my house to my game store, but if we want to do that fort, I can always grab it back from the game store and bring it to Adepticon if I don't get the other one finished. But it's getting to be crunch time. I want to get the stuff that I did promise first done, so those trees are top priority.
Thanks for doing all the terrain stuff since you guys can drive it up there. I feel like a slacker, but appreciate it.
And Jason has been doing a magnificent job with those display boards.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing those come together. We talked about it last time, but he's made a lot of progress, getting some resin to pour for the water effects now, and got all the texturing on them. And Fernando's been getting those miniatures done. Really looking forward to seeing those on the table. 16 by 16 inch kind of dioramas with painted miniatures on them, showcasing each nation. Be cool.
Yep. So we can move along into reports of glory and shame. And Joseph, I think, is the only one that has any glory or shame. I don't know which on this, but I've not really been playing all that much. I think the last time we had a game day at my local store, we just played some pickup games. Got to test a potential Adepticon C list. Not really much to say from that, but
I've got a bunch of games in lately. It took some weeks off over Christmas, obviously, but did a Bark Wars. I had 3 new players at my group last week, and we did 2 games of 4 players each. Everybody have a 100-point Bark. Moved a little slow because we had every person have their own activation card instead of the kind of army scale, 1 per side. But it was still really fun. 100 points is still fun for a little ship. What did I play? I played Spanish. Played Spanish Guardacostas. And
OG Guardacostas, or
it was the 18th century ones, but I didn't do anything fancy since it was 100 points with new players, so I was just Had some Corsarios and some militia, some Milicianos, Reformados, and some Marineros. And my ally, who was a new player, he was running pirates and went straight in between the other two enemy ships and got beat up really bad. And I didn't get hardly touched. And then I came in and just boarded the enemy ship and took it after he softened it up. And he had like 2 guys left on his ship from being just blasted from both sides. But it's a good time. Put a little mini short up on YouTube of people playing at the store. It's fun. The Deerfield raid test game, 6 players. I was helping another player do a demo, but I set up the game and Riley ran it. Test game for Adepticon, and it went pretty well, although I was getting feedback from after them, like, did you do this? Oh, yeah, I forgot that. So if you forget a couple important rules, like the English are all supposed to be prone at the beginning, so they don't wake up until the alarm is sounded. You got the watchman, and they kind of skirted a couple of those rules. So the English just all immediately at the very beginning of the game jumped out of their houses and started setting up defensive lines. And anytime the Indians try to get over the wall, they just blasted them to Kingdom Come. So the French still did okay, but it was not exactly as I intended it to go. But we're going to run it one more time, so that should be good. I did Capture the Settlement and Total War with my buddy Brian. I filmed him for Battle Report, so I already put one of those out. I played the Dutch at 150 points. I played a 30-point commander, Jeremias van Kolden out of Raise the Black, who is a solid commander, very inspiring with a 16-inch command range, 3 command points, and a couple other good things. Those are a couple good games. I'll put that Total War up eventually as well, but you can see Brian yell in consternation at the overpowered Dutch as his French take a beating here and there. Over Christmas, we did a snow take and hold games. We used snow terrain just to make it feel Christmassy. Had a little cabin with smoke coming out of the chimney, and we're joking about taking fat tests going down the chimney. See if we can fit, but we didn't. Played some Wabanaki, or I played Iroquois, I think. I played one of the bigger commanders there. It was fun to play some natives. I like that. One was a really close game, and then I just comboed all their soften up with arrows, charge them in, charge 2 units at once with throwing weapons, and really put the pain on, which was appreciated on the other side of the table a little bit. But yeah, as soon as Indians get fatigued out, they can really slow down. But had a couple good games there, and then and before that, I did this Capture the Settlement. I was playing against a newer player. He was playing French army and had one of the French factions with the Compagnies Françaises de la Marine, and I was playing Chasseurs. I hadn't played them for a long time, so I was playing a bunch of Buccaneers, 150 points, I think. So I didn't have very many models, and I was just too confident with those Buccaneers. They have a 5 shoot, right? I just kept them half loaded at least so they could defend against a charge, but these Frenchmen with their socket bayonets charged my Frenchmen and wiped out a whole unit of Buccaneers. My defensive fire totally missed. I didn't kill anyone. And a whole unit of like 70 points.
It's a dice game.
Yeah. So the French had a couple rough weeks for me. But yeah, a bunch of fun games. I try to post them on Instagram and sometimes our YouTube channel. So if you want to see some pictures of those games, you can see them there. A little bit of shame, a little bit of glory.
Cool. Like I said, I tested out my Guzman list. It worked pretty darn well. Still don't know if I'm going to do Guzman or Peralta for Adepticon, but we'll see. Dan, you got anything to add for this segment?
I do not. I haven't played a game since early December. Between being ill and the weather and the holidays, I have not had a chance.
It dipped below 80 degrees this last couple of weeks, didn't it? In Texas, it's pretty chilly there.
It's still there. It's not snowing anymore, but it was there. And when it snows, everything closes down.
Our snow shut everything down Friday, but the roads were pretty clear Saturday, so not too bad for us.
Yeah, if you don't have snow regularly, whenever Portland gets ice, it just shuts the whole thing down because we aren't equipped to deal with it. But
yeah,
same.
Yeah.
So, peeking behind the curtain, I think again Joseph would probably be the best one for this, as he is in meetings that Dan and I are not in sometimes.
I don't have a ton here. Biggest news I'm gonna throw out there is there's been a ton of sculpting happening. That's really exciting. A bunch of new miniatures coming out pretty soon here. Some for upcoming projects, some for projects another year out, but it's already happening, which is really cool. Haven't had very many new miniatures come out from Firelock for a while, but they really have their sculpting game on now. Getting a bunch of new characters and special minis that way. Getting some new maroon models, which is really exciting. Getting alternate sculpts for freebooters and filibusters. Already talked about a bunch of these. But they're going to have some exclusive minis for Adepticon, which will be cool. Which exclusive? Who knows what that means? I'm looking at doing some minis for the organized play kit again, trying to get that planned out for Summer of Plunder. But the sculpting, the guys over at Firelock have been doing awesome work, a bunch of it, and it looks really good. So that's the coolest thing happening. I'm still working on that Jamaica and Christopher Ming's expansion, which keeps morphine into something I didn't expect from my own fault or someone else's fault. So I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be coming out, but I'm really trying. I've bought more books this last week. Those are the main things I'm working on, as far as, or I know I'm aware of. But yeah, the sculpting thing is really exciting. And there's some sculpts that Mike says are done that he didn't even show me, so pretty offended about that.
Cool. Well, when he does show you, show us.
Yeah.
I always love seeing new minis.
I've been requesting a Cornelius the Fat Trumpeter miniature. I listened to that Batavia book. It's early 17th century, 1620s, 30s. And it's quite the tale. I think I've talked about it before. Cool book. But there's all these... There's a musician on that ship. And he goes by Cornelius the Fat Trumpeter. So I want a Dutch fat musician. I'm lobbying hard for that, but I haven't got the green light yet.
Oh, we moved on from that already, but I gotta toot my own horn. I won a local painting contest with a Blood and Plunder mini. So
Cool.
there you go.
Yeah, that was awesome.
that was part of the glory and shame. More glory than shame on that. But
Was that Piet Hein?
Piet Hein, yeah.
Yeah, it looks good. I love your painting style. It's good. Good solid
Thank you.
colors. Got to talk about the painting contest at the end of the episode here. But
Yes. That was I finished him before I could enter it into the pigment painting contest, but I've got plenty of stuff that I'm going to enter for that.
if you just put one more stroke of paint on him to finish him, it's legal. So you can do that if you want.
Oh, well, does sealing him count?
Oh yeah.
Okay. If sealing him counts, then I've not done that yet. I still need to do that because I always feel like sealing a miniature always like makes it look a little worse.
Sometimes it helps.
Sometimes
all these miniatures on my table, I'm so frustrated with because I bought the stupid Agrax Earthshade and it was glossy, so I got another bot and it was glossy too. So all these miniatures have gloss wash on them. It's impossible to tone it down, so they're all pretty much shot as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I got a bottle of Agrax one time that was glossy, but it did not have. It didn't say that on the bottle.
Yeah, it says flat, and then I bought 3 pots of it to get 1 pot.
The one that I've got now is not glossy, and if I start buying them and they start being glossy, like I'm probably just going to switch to something else. But
I haven't found something else that really replaces it in my book. But yeah, you spend $20 to get 1 pot. Like, how many times do I try here?
Exactly. Just start trying to do something else. But anyway, so we'll move on to our main topic of Amphibious Games and how we're going to give you ideas on how Amphibious Games are supposed to be run and how, or I guess not supposed to be run, but best to run and what purpose they serve for the Blood and Plunder community, I guess. Joseph, if you want to, because this was kind of your baby as far as our notes are concerned and the organization of what we're going to be talking about, I'll let you take it from here. But and you also probably have the most experience running these Amphibious Games.
Yeah.
As most of the time I have run Amphibious Games as historical scenarios, and that's about it. So I'll let you go.
Yeah, amphibious scenarios. People ask about them a lot. Somebody asked about them on the live stream we did with Mike and Liam and Tyler earlier, or in December. And they're never really used for tournament games, and there might be a reason for that. But a lot of people have struggled to get them balanced. They look really cool. Having the whole visuals of the coastline and people coming in off of ships or boats, and you have maybe a coastal town, the port city. Those are just such iconic pirate or buccaneer settings and moments that it's really cool to do. But I've heard people be frustrated with how they never feel very balanced. So I want to walk through some ideas for how to make sure that they are balanced, at least enough to be fun, and then kind of talk about ways to approach them. They probably aren't, I just put it out there right now, they probably aren't the best tournament scenarios. Every war game has a lot of moving parts that change your balance, even just where you place terrain, how much terrain you put on the board, how your terrain interacts with your different forces. There's so many different variables for being truly balanced. But Amphibious obviously has more than average of that because you have two systems meeting each other, and Blood Plunder does that really well, but it doesn't mean there's not ways to make mistakes. So first, I think, what is the purpose of your Amphibious game? Do you want it to be a cutthroat competitive event? You need to be real careful how you set it up. Do you want it to be eye candy to pull people into the game, walk through your game store at a convention, or do you want to do a historical scenario to reenact a certain thing, or you want it just to be a big group game a bunch of people can participate on? All those things are going to kind of dictate how you run it. But I wouldn't choose them as tournament games. And Mike has said, yeah, we never thought they would be tournament games. It's fun, and they include them in the rule books. It's kind of cool how the rule books have one scenario, plunder, and then it has land, amphibious, and sea. And it's cool how that works, but it doesn't mean they all work perfectly as well as each other. Have you guys ever played one scenario in all three theaters just to kind of get a good feel for it?
I have never done that. No.
I have not either.
Yeah. So then game size matters a lot too. If you do a huge game, 500 points or something, the cost of the ship. Some people say the ship costs so much and it throws the balance all off. But some of that is scaling. How big are you doing? And then how much do you pour into your ship? And then how well do you use your ship? Because there's really ways to use your ship in the game to get value out of it. So sorry, but I don't accept that complaint. I think it's silly. But and then the scenario itself. Some scenarios in the book are more balanced than others in Amphibious, and that just takes some experience. And maybe you don't have time to test all those and see which ones are great or not, and that's okay. But I think the biggest thing for the whole Amphibious thing is your terrain placement, and that's important for land games as well. And what I've noticed is people often set up. The beach is supposed to be clear, right? Beaches are always sandy and clear. And then you set up a town because it looks cool. You want your coastal town, and you might have a fort there because Spanish have forts, right? So you have these ships coming up to a blank beach, soldiers jumping out of them, guys in fortifications just shooting them down as they come out. And that might be kind of realistic, but it's nobody's idea of a good time, and it ends up really poorly for the attacker. So that's what you don't want to do. But what you do want to do is set up a variety of terrain. You don't give the defenders fortifications unless you make them pay a lot of points for them. Have your objectives be sort of near the coast, the water line, so the attackers have to come forward to do something rather than just sit back at the back of the board and shoot reload, which is always a recipe for them winning. And then put scatter terrain out in the middle of the board so there's actually some cover so you aren't running across a blank beach or across empty docks with no cover, because you will get shot down. Even with the new saves out of cover rules. So think, how is this going to be balanced? Don't just set up something that looks cool. Think, if they're trying to do this, they need to have some sort of equitable chance. If the attackers use your ship well, they can get some advantage by they're moving towards the enemy while they have hard cover and while they're shooting and reloading and moving. They're moving for free, but once they get off their ship, often things go downhill quickly. So having kind of equitable cover areas for the attacker and defender, so it's not just a turkey shoot, is the best thing you can do for the whole amphibious game. So put a couple docks out if you want to use big ships, put some stuff on the docks, or you had an idea for making that work real easy, right, Dan?
Yeah, for when we do it, when we have docks, we have it so the docks provide cover, but they are not difficult terrain. Because if you put a bunch of scatter terrain on there, and then people want to kind of move in between, there's issues with control zones and stuff like that. So we just made it so if there's docks, we assume there's barrels and stuff on it, so the attacker can safely get off and get where they need to be without being totally lit up.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you can put a few barrels on there, but you don't.
representative.
When you do that, you can just be like, well, it doesn't matter if you're behind them or not. You're on the dock, so we're going to assume that there's stuff there. So I think that's a pretty good way of doing it.
Other thing related to docks, I like to put 2 docks out on the board. Typical amphibious scenarios: ship starts at sea and defenders start at land. If you put 1 dock, the defender has a pretty good idea where the attacker is going to show up. All right, you have to go to that 1 dock. So putting 2 little spurs of docks out into the water can give the attacker, the ship force, a little bit of choice and a little maybe make the defender deploy in a manner that's not so focused. That's one of the fun things you can do as the attacker. If the defender deploys all the way across the board, and then you maybe fake out your opponent and turn one way and then turn the other way and land where he only can bring half of his force to bear, that gives you a bit of a better chance there. But if you have 1 dock and you know you're going to dock there, you can just put all those guys pointing at the dock, and as soon as you land, good luck. So putting 2 places to land, another thing you can do to avoid all that other potential trouble is just play boats as the attacker. Boats can just slide up onto the beach with no penalty or anything. They don't need a dock. Ships, you can slide up on the beach, but when your ship is immobilized, you take 1 strike point. And it would look silly to just sail your 6th rate onto the beach. You'd need to have a really good prize to take on land if that make it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paraguas, excellent ship, and that's what they really used. Canoes, great. You kind of need a lot of them to put a whole force in a couple and canoes. But Paragua is a really good choice for amphibious games in general. They're very maneuverable, so you can kind of fake out your enemy. They go really fast, so if you want to get a land quickly, they can. You can paddle or row them if you want to have more control. And you can just land anywhere along the coastline, making them a lot more tactically interesting. Longboats, great too, but Paraguas they hold a lot of guys, so you don't have to buy as many of them, although they are kind of expensive.
An idea that comes to mind if you are dead set on bringing a ship and the docks are set up properly, the Barco Luengo is pretty good because you have those forward-facing cannon. Load them with
Yeah.
grape, and you can help. Those guys can shell those pesky defenders. Or if they're in a building, you now have 2 medium guns. You can then shoot at the building and collapse on top of them.
Yeah, it's a great choice. Cannons are really fun, especially if there's a town and people are hiding in buildings. That can be a source of balance issues too if the defender just hide in a building. So you can bring cannons and blow up buildings, because buildings, if you look at the terrain chapter, are quite weak. You hit them a couple times with a couple cannons and they collapse, or they take a lot of criticals really fast. But if you spend 1 or 2 turns shooting cannons from your ship before you land, your timer runs that really fast. So one of the things I would be flexible with is your game length. I mean, you don't want to just let the attacker shell you for 10 turns and you can't do anything about it. That's not a good time either. But 6 turns might be a little bit too short for some amphibious scenarios. I find that if it limited to 6 turns, sometimes the game ends right as it's getting good. So I might talk with your opponent about that. 6, 8 turns. Let's see where we are at turn 4 or something, and maybe adjust accordingly so you get to play the whole game out rather than quitting it early.
Especially if you're doing ships and you're doing a scenario that requires the attacker to get further inland for their objective as well. What do you think about balancing point maximums for attacker versus defender? Should the defender have fewer points, or should the attacker have fewer points, or should you just keep it even?
I have heard a lot of people say that the attacker should have more points. And in general, I think on land, which attacker has more of a challenge for a lot of scenarios because they have to do something what the defender doesn't. But in my experience, they don't. In Amphibious Games, you don't need more points. You just might need to spend them wisely. If you're going to bring a bunch of cannons and shoot them once, maybe you need more points, but that's not a game issue. That's a planning issue. Don't spend a bunch of points on cannons if you're going to shoot them once. That's a bad waste of points. But if you spend 20 points on a ship in a 200-point game, that's 10%. That's not that much. And you're getting hardcover as you move up. And you get a bonus on, you get free moves as well. So I feel like it pays for itself just fine. But if you find that attackers are always losing in your group, that's one way to help balance it, give them a few more points. But I do not subscribe to that complaint.
I want to say, too, that I recently ran I think it's the beached ship scenario in the Raise the Black, and we did the version of it that had the loot on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically gave the defender fewer points, and that did not work out for me. And so I am with you on that. I think, especially when you have a balanced scenario and you have an attacker force that's just boats, and it's kind of just one-on-one. I think I probably should have made that a lot more balanced as far as points go, because my Spanish defenders kind of got creamed on the shore, and I was thinking that the Spanish wouldn't have to move and do as much. They're just kind of sitting there defending, and so that they would not need as many points. But it turns out the pirates just kind of swarmed them.
Pirates? Swarm things? What?
Well, they were not. I made these lists. They were not They were not pirate spam.
Okay, good.
They were a little more nuanced than that. But even still, like I said, I gave them more points. Usually like 25 more points per list. And so I was like, at the end, I was like, that didn't seem that balanced. So if I ever run this again, I'll probably just do straight up points on both sides.
I like that scenario. I hope you enjoyed it. But I think that's a fun one. And it's a little more balanced because, the defender, they have some stuff to do. And the attacker can kind of sail right up to that ship if it's sticking into the water and actually board it, almost like a boarding action. I really love that scenario. So that's a good one to start with. I think that, and you have those options in Raise the Black for tweaking it and making it a little bit more thematic, which I enjoy too.
Yeah, it was a good scenario, but like I said, I just made the mistake of giving the pirate side more points, and so didn't feel balanced to me at the end. I felt like the Spanish lost way too easily.
Mm. Well, that's pretty realistic. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, it was realistic, but
I think the other thing you do is just start at 100 points, and then you can use 2 longboats. Can you afford 6 points? I think you can. Or maybe, or 2 canoes, 4 points. They're really, 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 really cheap. And I've played a 100-point game, and I just zoomed up with my boats, and I was shooting while I came up, and the other guy was having to move around on land, and the moving on your boats is actually a huge advantage. So you can have tactical control and still shoot and reload, and it's good.
I gave the Spanish side extra, or not extra, but fortifications as well. I counted it towards their point totals, and then also they were the gun emplacements.
Yeah,
and I gave them 2 light cannons to fire on the pirates as they came in, and I think I overestimated the effectiveness of those.
they aren't very good. I mean, when you're talking 2 cannons and that's like a broadside from a bark, which is almost laughable once you get it.
I did even give them grape shot too, so
that's helpful. That's good.
There was that, but they only got like 1 shot off, and
right, they can come in so fast.
Yeah, so I might even up the points and maybe even give them those cannons for free, or just like, it's they didn't have that much of an effect on the game.
Yeah, it's a lot of points.
And after the pirates were already there, they were almost a detriment because I had artillerymen there, and so once the cannon is not effective, artillerymen are just like,
and they have that static cone of fire. You can't move them, so the attacker can just dodge them. That's why they're included kind of as a free bonus option. It changes the flavor of the game, but it's not that powerful.
No, yeah. So it was a good learning experience for that specific scenario. I might run it again later this year just to refresh in it. But yeah, that's my most recent involvement with an amphibious game.
The other scenario, Amphibious, which is a really easy starter one, which kind of breaks all the rules, is the Capture the Surgeon scenario, which I'm doing a battle report on right now, video for YouTube. But it breaks that standard mold of attacker on sea and defender on land, where you have this scenario, you have both players start at sea, and they have to go seize the surgeon at the back of the board on land. So both players are trying to land, and you have a lot of interesting tactical options how to play that out, but it totally puts on its head all that balance issue. It's very balanced because you're both trying to go get that surgeon, and you're both at sea, and you have to choose how to land. But again, you need to set the board in an equitable way, so it works. But I've seen some really interesting games with that scenario. And you've played that one in the Summer of Plunder organized play kit last year.
We did. That was one of our final games. As we did that as a very small point amphibious game, and that's the one where we used the docks as cover.
How'd it go?
On the table to the right that we set up, there was less buildings, so it went well. The one that I was on, we included just 2 random buildings in there and did not clarify beforehand. So one person moved in there, and because it was a stone building, they said, "Oh, it's hard cover." And I was like, "Well, we didn't discuss before, and for right now, it makes sense." And it was a pain. I don't think I even got off the dock.
No.
It was very difficult. So that's when we were kind of scratching our heads, but we don't do amphibious games that often.
Yeah, that's an important suggestion is discuss your terrain before you start the game. Otherwise, you end up with those situations where, oh, I assume this, I assume that. And then it's like, well, how are we going to decide?
Yeah, try to think of everything.
Plus, remember all your special rules, your faction rules, and your weapon abilities and everything else, right?
Yep. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
Nope. So that's in Raise the Black. I would recommend that one as a intro to amphibious games if you want to try it without bumping into some of the potential pitfalls.
Yeah, that's a potential one that I might run next month in February, because I asked some of my players what they'd like to see, and they were like, do more generic stuff that we can bring, any nation to, because I like the historical stuff, but mostly the historical stuff that I run is Spanish versus English. It's my thing. I like it.
I love historical scenarios as well, but a large part of the game and the hobby for a lot of people is building their own lists and see how they play out. So, yeah, in some generic scenarios that you can bring any weird force you're trying to build, or building a force for a scenario. This Capture the Surgeon one, you can tech for it pretty hard. A really fast ship, freshly careened hull, a local guide with quick units that are veterans. You can build in a way that helps you accomplish the goal of the scenario. So yeah, choosing scenarios and letting people build for them, or just say build your best force and we'll pick a random scenario and see how people deal with it. I think that's a fun way to run a group for a while and kind of switch back and forth between some of those ways to approach the game. So
my group is growing as far as people that have their own stuff now, and so I'm perfectly fine with doing that more. But before, it was like, well, everybody's going to use my miniatures anyway, so I mostly have Spanish and English stuff, so we're just going to run this historical Spanish and English scenario. But now if people, have their own stuff and want to run more generic stuff so they can bring their Dutch forces, they can bring their pirate forces, I'm all for that.
yeah, amphibious scenarios. You also need a little bit of equipment. You need a mat that works, or you need to combine 2 mats. You can easily put a land and a sea one together and have just a joint spot there. Or you can get Table War has a really, really, really great mat, 4x4 amphibious mat. It has a little more sea than land, but considering that the first 3 inches of the water counts as land, basically, your ship will get beached there and your men can walk out into it. It's about right, but that's I think one of the best pieces of equipment you can get to make amphibious scenarios more fun and easy to set up is just grab that 4x4 mat. And then you can lay out a table real fast. And you might want some docks. I don't know where to get the best docks anymore. I got some from Foreground, but they shut down. But there's several different MDF companies out there and STLs where you can popsicle stick it up. But you definitely want some docks if you want to run amphibious scenarios at any.
We've got and you might want to link this in the description, but I think Blood and Pigment has a pretty good doc article. I think that was Guy doing that, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did a great article there. Very cheap.
I've made them. They look good. And I recommend using those coffee stirrers for any kind of planking terrain that you're making. It looks really good in the correct scale, those wooden coffee stirrers.
As opposed to popsicle sticks.
As opposed to popsicle sticks. I think popsicle sticks are a little too big for the scale.
Just a little.
Just a little. Just my opinion. So, we got anything else we want to go through Amphibious Games?
I got it all off my chest. I feel good now.
Okay. Yeah. I think all of that is great. I want to bring up that I have played a tournament that utilized a amphibious game, and it was not terrible. Jason's tournament that he ran, gosh, when was that? It was sometime last year. He did a first round was land, second round was amphibious, third round was sea.
That looked cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was probably a real pain in the butt to organize, but it was interesting. And the way he did amphibious was you just did you just use your land list, and he gave you boats if you were the attacker. And so that was a good way of doing it competitively. It's probably not the most satisfying way of doing it, but it was interesting in a tournament setting anyway.
Yeah.
So
I did a tournament once with amphibious scenario. Don't recommend this necessarily, especially for a larger group, but if you have 4 or 6 players, it's pretty easy. Everybody doing a land and a sea list. The first round is land, the second round is sea, and then the third round, you secretly submit which list you want to do, and you're matched up with the appropriate person, and then you find out if you're land, sea, or amphibious. It can be kind of wild and exciting, but maybe not that smart. But it was fun.
interesting. Yeah, that seems like it would be good for a small player count group.
Because you have to be able to be flexible and set up the tables real fast.
You only got like 2 or 3 tables you got to set up.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want to go into New Year's goals?
Yes.
All right. It is, like we said, currently the 12th of January, so we're a little bit late on this. And depending on how fast I can get this edited, it'll be even later. But my goals for the new year that are Blood and Plunder related is I would like to read more. I'm notoriously around the pigment world a slow reader. Joseph and I started a book that I got for Christmas last year in 2023, and I still haven't finished it. And Joseph finished it, and he started it like a month or 2 ago, I feel like.
Actually, I haven't read the last chapter or so it's not quite true, but I got through most of the stuff I needed to.
I think I'm on chapter 9. I'm almost done with it, but it's been interesting so far. We're talking about Conquest of Jamaica book. But I want to finish, and I've got them. I've got a lot of reading backlog that I could do, but I'd like to finish 3 books this year. Me actually reading them in person. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but actually reading sometimes is a struggle for me to find the time to do it.
Yeah.
And then I also, just before we got on this podcast, I counted how many Blood and Plunder miniatures that I have assembled and are ready to either paint, prime, or have some amount of painting already done, but they're not finished. And I have 172 Blood and Plunder miniatures. I would like to get 100 of those knocked out this year, finished.
That's 2 weeks' work for Dan.
Probably. And then my galleon is in a constant state of not finished. It's getting, I made some progress on it a couple of weeks ago, but getting it finished would be also a year goal for me. So there's my 3 things. I'll kick it over to Dan for his 4 things. I think he has 4 things.
All right. Okay. So first, again, similar. I have a backlog that, as of right now, is not quite as full, but I definitely have some stuff I need to paint. So before I start any new projects, I want to finish my backlog that I have currently, which consists of some Valor minis. I have a Barco Luengo that needs to be painted, and then I have 2 commanders, one for you, Garrett, and one for Fernando, that I'm going to go ahead and paint up for y'all. And then that's kind of my first one. It's kind of quantifiable because I know where I'm at now, and I don't plan on priming anything until all of that is done. I want to finish my Great Northern War book. I have the scenarios, I only have 2 more that I need to test. And then I just need to do the legwork of painting minis. I want to get it all done and sent over to Mike this year, and so it can be published whenever it's ready from there. But I want to finish that up so I can then focus on other projects, because I've been doing it for 3 years and it needs to be done so I can then focus on other stuff that takes place in the Caribbean. This is basically a big old passion project that I started years ago, and I just want to get it completely done and out to folks.
Cool.
And then for number 3, I want to play more Valor and Crowns. I always play a lot of Plunder every year. I want to work on those other 2 games. I do love them, and I want to get just as good an understanding of those games as I do on Plunder. So that's a personal goal for me. We always do a Blood not Plunder after the Summer Plunder because we play so much Plunder right after the other over those couple months. So I want to take more time and do that, as well as hopefully help those 2 communities grow because they're good games and they deserve to be played. And then my last one is I want to actually play more amphibious scenarios this year, because that's one that we don't do a whole lot. And that's 1/3 of the scenarios. So I would like to do more of that this year.
Nice.
Do you have a sneak peek into something that you might be working on for the other games with maybe some other content creators, or do you want to keep that under wraps for right now?
Kind of under wraps right now, working on logistics. I'm working with Tyler over at Dead Man's Chest, because I think that's a good resource for those other games. We're just working on hopefully some content that will be kind of similar to this. Hopefully, I don't mind helping out over there because, like I said, I love Valor and Crowns, and I would like to see those communities grow as well. I'm currently also helping playtest the next expansion for Crowns that is in very rudimentary testing right now. So more word on that when that comes up.
Sounds like Tyler has a New Year's resolution to get more posts out on his blog this year too, so that's good.
We've been chatting. We've been chatting about it. So
Good.
Okay, Joseph, what do you got?
I got lots of stuff I want to do, but here's 3 things that will be easy for you to mock me at the end of the year, which is the whole point, right? I want to paint more. I hardly got to paint any this year. I probably painted 20 or 30 minis. I want to paint 100. It's only 8 a month, right? 8.5 a month. I should be able to do that. So I'm going to try to keep track. I want to paint 3 ships. I haven't painted a ship. I only painted like, I don't know, maybe 2 ships this year, but I have a 6th rate. I really want to paint up as Blackbeard's ship. Make it a little bit more piratey. I have another light frigate I want to build up as a larger brigantine, which there might be an alt card coming out for that. So I want to put a big old gaff sail on that. And I have another Barco Luengo, and I have a couple. One ship I got secondhand that's all wrecked. So I want to get at least 3 of those painted and built up. A lot of goals I could make for the blog and content here, but one that I struggled with last year is getting videos out on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to try to get at least 1 video out on the YouTube channel per month. Either a character spotlight, we're working on a couple of those. I got one coming out, actually. It'll be out by the time we release this. On King Golden Cap, or a battle report video, or a convention report or something, but try to keep our YouTube channel a little more regular this year. Once you fall off the bandwagon, the wagon on making videos, making videos is difficult for me. I don't know if it is for everybody, but a lot of stuff, recording and pictures and overdubbing and learning the software. Once you stop, take a break, it's hard to jump back in. So I'm going to try to keep consistent on that. And then another big project that I've kind of had on the wings for about a year is I have the space to set up a video station. My brother has this huge barn that's climate controlled. He has an office and he has this other space that I traded some work for him to let me use it for the Blood and Pigment Studios. So I just need to get sheetrock painted. Got some shelves that guy gave me. Get some lighting in there. We got a table ready to go. I can keep some of my terrain over there. kind of poor man's version of the Beasts of War Studios, which is so cool. Helped the game get off the ground so much back in the day. So I have to film on my kitchen counter in Brian's man cave. So that's a goal. I just need to carve out a couple days to go work on it. I think it could be really fun, really cool. Could have some more multiplayer games in there, a little bit better camera work for any battle reports you want to do. So it's kind of a big one, and it's not really a hobby goal, but it's a blood and pigment goal.
Sounds good. Yeah, I want to help you guys. That's another one I guess I could add to mine too. Is I'd like to help you guys on the blog a little bit more this year, whether it be videos or articles. I always feel like I should do more, but
yeah, we got too many projects going. We got Adepticon. We put a ton of work in. We got some of Plunder. We got blog posts. We got videos. There's kind of as many of us, a good team of us, but so many things we could do. It's so fun. We spread ourselves thin. We can't do everything all the time. But yeah, so many opportunities. Kind of go through cycles. A bunch of videos, a bunch of blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the summer Plunder. It's all in free time, so you gotta just do what's fun and do what's hopefully fun for the community and enjoy doing it. Otherwise, it becomes a chore, and then you don't want hobby to become a chore and a drag. So,
right. So announcements. We've got Adepticon coming up at the end of March,
26th through 30.
26th through the 30th. Also got at the beginning of March, Cyril's Raid, my reenacting thing. So that's March 1st.
St. Augustine, right?
St. Augustine. Later on this year, July 31st through August 3rd will be Gen Con. I submitted some stuff to Mike for my 2 events that I want to run for Gen Con. Not set in stone yet, but the stuff I want to do is a C tournament and a C event. Probably going to do just a fleet battle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sure they'll be running some demos of stuff. I'm sure Blood and Bayonets is probably going to be something that they're going to be pushing at that time, and other stuff like that. Port Royal's probably going to be up and going at that point, and Mike's wanting to do a lot of demos of that. But should be fun.
Speaking of Gen Con, I put a little work over the last week or two into an events page on Blood and Pigment that has a list of different conventions. There's opportunities to play Blood and Plunder at or other Firelocks games. So if you look at the event tab on the blog, I got a page for store events too, where I listed some of the stores I knew that do mostly ours, yours, Dan's, Jason's. But any store that kind of regular hosts games, if you're looking for a place to play, I would love, or if you know a place to play that, or you host games, I would love to put it on a list there. So there's a kind of collected place people can check to see if they got players in their area. But yeah, I have a whole list of conventions I know things are happening at. Lots of opportunities, conventions that need events at. If you're a quartermaster or just interested in helping out or want to become a quartermaster or Firelock, several conventions that just takes one person to get something rolling. If you have 2 ships and 20 soldiers and want to set up a little event, run a couple times during the convention, that gets people seeing the game and pulls people into the hobby and maybe make some local friends. But yeah, that events page, check it out, see if anything going on near you or any convention you want to attend.
Definitely. And then we've got the painting contest going on right now.
Yeah, we got a bunch of entries already, about 55 entries as 12 days. It's pretty good. January's focus is on commanders and characters, so easy way to start the painting contest. Runs all the way from January to end of March, end of April, with every month kind of being having a different category being judged. So January, you can enter anything the whole time, but if you want to get judged, maybe get a prize for a commander or character, do that in January. And then February, we have terrain and oak and iron stuff getting judged. Then March, you got Blood and Plunder units. That's kind of the big body of the contest. But you can enter units now. If you get them painted, they just won't get that judging until then. And then April, you got Blood and Plunder ships. And then if you've painted up a bunch of minis over the course of the campaign, the contest, you can enter a whole like a battle force, like a whole box, 25 models or so, army that you've painted up. You could have entered them earlier as commanders and units, whatnot, but you can kind of enter a big group. There's different prizes for each one. The end of January, I'll have a panel of 4 judges narrow the contestants down to the top 5 or so, and then there'll be a few days for public voting, so you can vote for which one you think is best. We got prizes every month. We got a prize given out the mid-month, and then at the end of the month, and that will just be a random contestant. It's going to get a pretty cool prize, and then whoever wins that People's Choice gets a cool custom prize medal that says Great Pirate Paint Off 2025. I know you all want that.
Medals are always fun.
Hang them somewhere, and then not sure what to do with them. Yeah. So yeah, jump in on the painting contest. Now is a good time to do it. I have a ever-growing gallery of all the entries. One of my favorite things with the painting contest is just seeing everybody's work and getting inspired and getting good ideas from however people paint things, and see miniatures I know I need to paint, and that looks good, I'll do that, or take this guy's idea. So great time to get your painting brushes out and bring some of those models to life, and maybe earn some prizes and fun when you're doing it. There's a whole tab for it on the blog too. I guess I should mention some of our sponsors for the contest. We have different organizations and individuals giving us a good discount on some prize material. I'll mention that real quick. Things in the Basement has been helping us out for several years with some of our Plunder and the painting contest prizes. Got a big pile of stuff from him that he gave me a discount on. Plunder Den, Dexter's going to do a terrain challenge again. Sounds like he's doing some really kind of generic terrain, scattered terrain competition thing that'll be useful for everybody. He's going to give some of his cool terrain away. St. Augustine Mint, I finally got connected with them. They make some of the best reproduction Spanish coinage. He's giving me a good discount on. Miniature Building Authority, that's a big company. They gave us a $150 building for free just to give away to people, so watch for that prize. Simon's Quality Sales Guys, mother, still have a couple sales from her that we have to give away that she donated. Firelock Games has given us a 6th rate we're going to give away, so watch for that big prize. Timber and Sale, Jason is giving us some cool custom prizes for oak and iron as well. And Feldhair came back and has given us a couple of the really great cases, which we're using a lot of this year. All these minis for Adepticon. We've got several of their boxes that are just awesome. They hold 200 miniatures, real safe, sturdy. Not that expensive, but they gave us about $150 worth of material to give away for this year for prizes as well. So great companies and individuals supporting the community and hobby. Watch for their prizes and buy their stuff.
Yeah, I like Feldher cases quite a bit. For more Blood and Plunder content, you can go to bloodandpigment.com and check out all of our material there. We have articles on ships, nations, factions, terrain, painting guides, battle reports, anything you can think of, really. So go check it out.
Check our YouTube channel as well. If I keep my New Year's resolution, there might be something new up every couple of weeks. If you appreciate our content and want to throw us some doubloons, check out our Patreon. We got some special articles and early releases there. We've been trying to give thanks out to our patrons, giving us money to keep things going, keep the lights on and the prizes flowing here. Patreon.com/bloodandpigment.
And as always, keep your dice ready to win at your backyard.